Okay, so thank you all in person and virtual for joining us for Dog Tag Detected. We are very, very lucky to have several of the folks involved with this story joining us today. We have Laurent Stemkens, who found the dog
Hello.
tag. We have several members of the gay family whose family member the dog tag belonged to. And we have Linda Matchan, who wrote a fantastic article in the Boston Globe about this story. So I will very quickly and crudely summarize this story, and then we will sort of go around and get the more detailed picture from this. So in short, Laurent found a dog tag belonging to someone named Louis Gertzberg, and he tirelessly worked to find ancestors of this Louis Gertzberg. Um, and the gay family are the ancestors, and they received it, and then Linda wrote a fabulous article about this story. So with that, let's get into the nitty-gritty details. We'll start with Laurent. Let me see if I can pin you here. Oops. Okay, perfect. So Laurent, thank you so much for joining us. I hope it's not too late where you are.
No, it's not a problem. It's
Well,
8 in the evening, so.
oh, okay, perfect. Oh, sure. Let me see if I can. I think it is coming through this. Or was it just? Actually, it's in here. Okay, see if that goes. So Laurent, can you tell us how you got into metal detecting and what your experience of coming across this dog tag was?
Well, I got into metal detecting when I was, I think, around 19 years old. I always wanted a metal detector since I was like a little child. And yeah, I always used to like watch YouTube videos about it and people finding guns and everything. I thought it was very, very cool to people find something like that. But I was like, yeah, it's where I live, there's nothing. I thought there wasn't anything here. But then during lockdown, I had all the time in the world. So I went like almost every day. I went metal detecting. I was like, oh, where I live, is actually a lot of interesting stuff to find. I don't even. I thought I would have to go to another country, But like there's where I live, there's plenty to be found. And yeah, just so I've been doing it a couple of years, and in 2022, I was in Germany near an base, and yeah, it was like I always wanted to find a dog tag because like yeah, it's just one of those bucket list items because I know a lot of people that actually also found dog tags. So I was like, I want one too because it's like the most personal thing you could find of a soldier. And yeah, well, I was looking in May of 2022. I was in Germany next to an abandoned Air Force base. I already had a lot of interesting finds there. But suddenly, my detector beeped. I just dug up a signal, and suddenly I had it in my hand, and it was like, yeah, it was the best discovery I've ever done.
Wow. And is this the only
Yeah,
dog tag that you found?
it's the only dog tag that I found there. It's I've got some other items with names on it. Of yeah, not really names, but like a laundry number. A soldier got a certain number, not the serial number, but the laundry number. I got some items of that, but doing the research for that is it's impossible to begin with. So yeah, I've got more items I would like to find the owner of, but it's just not possible.
Cool. Cool. Keep us
Yeah,
posted if you find any more.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
so after you found this, what was your motivation? If I remember correctly from Linda's article, it took you years to figure out who the descendants of this person's dog tag. What was your motivation for this, and like what just kept you pushing?
Well, my motivation was I found it, and it was like the moment I found it, I wasn't like, oh, it's nice for my collection. I was like, I want to know. who this belonged to, and if he still has any relatives and are interested in knowing about it, because I know people that also found things with names on it, and those families they didn't care. But I just wanted to find out, of course. So yeah, well, I typed in the name. I couldn't. Yeah, I didn't find anything useful on the internet to yeah, contact the family, because the family name practically didn't exist anymore in that family. Yeah, so a couple of years after, I just searched, and yeah, I just dead end. And then I remember someone I know. Um, yeah, I don't really know him, but like from the internet, and I was like, "Oh, can you look this up for me?" And he did, and he found like I forgot about the name. It's some type of registration card, and it showed his employer, and it's Joseph Gunn Jewelers in Boston. And I was like looking it up. I was like, oh, it actually still exists. Because like the employer, it said Joseph Gunn, and he was the person that um, launched the company. So like, oh yeah, well, I will contact them, and that's yeah, that's how the ball went rolling.
Awesome. And that sort of tails into my next question that I have is what was it like working with Joshua Gann? And I think, was it his son that you also spoke with? Or
Yeah, it's
is that right?
I'm not
Okay.
I don't really remember who I sent a message to the company. I think I thought it was an email. I don't remember how exactly, but it was a woman I was in contact with. She sent me also a message on WhatsApp, but I sadly don't have those messages anymore, so I can't look back into it. But that person know knew another person that according to Ancestry, I used Ancestry to find the gay family.
Oh, cool.
Yes.
And in Linda's article, she mentions that the Jewish Genealogical Society of Greater Boston had a pretty big part in sort of realizing the change of the last name. Did you work with them directly, or did
No.
folks kind of, okay,
No.
cool, great. Well, thank you so much. I'm gonna switch over to our gay family members, and we will
Yes.
see. Again, this is like more casual maybe than I'm thinking, so please feel free to like interject with one another, like having fun. So for anyone in the family who was willing to answer, what was it like when you were first contacted by Laurent, and like what were you thinking? What was going through your head?
So I got a random weird email. I'm actually looking at it right now.
Yeah.
July 29th of 2024. And and it was one of those things where I would normally have just dismissed it, right? You get spam messages all the time, and I'm like, nah, I'm just gonna delete this. And I looked at it, and it was from ancestry.com. So it was, and I don't go on Ancestry very regularly, but I have our family tree uploaded. And I'm like, all right, that's kind of weird. It's not, doesn't look like it's spam. So let me look at it. And I read the message, and I'll read it to you. It says, my name is Jason. My name is David Rosen. A friend asked me to help her locate a descendant of Lionel Gay, also known as Louis Gertzberg. Uh, he was at one time employed in her father's jewelry store in Boston. She was recently contacted by a man in the Netherlands who found his dog tag from World War II with the name Louis Gertzberg. He researched U.S. Army records and ultimately located my friend, and this man wants to return it to a family member. So my reaction was, I'm like, wait, what? My
Yeah.
grandfather passed away in 1989. This is a long time like coming, like very surprising. Not to mention it was 3 days before what would have been his 101st birthday. Now, if you know my grandfather, he had this deep cackle of a laugh where he's got to be laughing right now, going, "What is happening, and why are all these people all of a sudden like talking about me?" So I'm sitting here like, "All right, well, that's interesting." So I said, "Hi, who was your friend that found this?" Lionel was my grandfather. Um, and that's when he put me in touch with Shirley Saunders. So Shirley Saunders was Joseph Gann's daughter. I believe she's still with us. Um, so I reached out to Shirley at that point and I was like, all right, tell me what's going on. And she tells me all about Laurent. And she's like, we've been in contact with him. He found us through, I'm not quite sure how she found him, but she, I guess, works for the Genealogical Society or volunteers with the Genealogical Society, and David and her are friends through that organization. So that's how it got to me. It got to me because I've had published my family tree up to Ancestry, and it had Lionel's, original given name of Louis Gertzberg on it. It was
Um,
wild, like really a wild and crazy story. I was at work, I was shaking, and I'm like, I dropped everything and I cleared my calendar for the rest of the day. And I vividly remember running into the kitchen. My wife was in the other room, was like, "You're not going to believe what just happened."
And then you sent it in a family group text, and we're all like, "What?"
wow, that's great. Um, so in Linda's article, she writes about a celebratory Zoom call with Laurent once you all sort of got connected with each other. What was that like, sort of getting to hear his side of the story and
It was
connecting with this
super.
person?
It was super cool. He and I had, we started chatting on WhatsApp. We talked a little bit, try to get things together. I know my mom is on the Zoom call with my dad right now. Um, my cousin John is on the call as well. Um, we all kind of got together and started this chat together at some point, and we created a group. And we were like, we should just talk. Let's all get together. So we had a whole bunch of family members on this call, and I remember I spread out like I have like a whole collection of all these black and white photos from my grandfather from the war and from his youth. And I spread them out all over my pool table that's behind me, and we're like going through stuff and maps, and we're talking about this is where we think he was, and Laurent's looking at the map and saying, oh, like we took pictures of it and sent it to him. He's like, oh, I was here in this location. This is where I found stuff. It was really cool. But it was a surreal moment. Like this is not something that you just expect to happen any day.
Yeah, that I didn't realize that you all were sort of working together to kind of go through that map. That's really cool. Um,
So
would you or anyone else in the family be willing to sort of just share a little bit about Lionel, like his character, interests, hobbies?
I can see that John wants to talk.
John always wants to talk. I'll chime in briefly, and I'm sure Carol's got some stories she wants to chime in with too. But I'm the younger of the two of us, so I was only 8 when he passed away. So Jason has more memories of him than I do, and obviously Carol, being his daughter-in-law, would have more too. But just the guy that everybody loved, the guy that lit up the room, that had the incredible sense of humor, was friends with everybody. Nobody had a bad word to say about him, and Carol, I'll probably tee you up for this. Just, but he didn't want to talk about the war. He did not want to talk about it. I'll let you tell that story, Carol.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My husband Alan's here. He's not feeling well, but he can hear everything. So he's sitting here if you have a question. Everything Jonathan just said, my father-in-law was a very unique personality. He had a phenomenal sense of humor. He was the biggest practical joker I've ever met in my life. I personally think he had something to do with all of this. Like Jason kind of said, it is very it's definitely serendipity, but he still had his hand in it. I'm convinced. And I can hear that same laugh, Jason, that you were just mentioning. Um, he was uh, he was really a wonderful man. One of the nieces is sitting behind you, great niece, that's Penny. She can wave, and she probably remembers some stories that being from Malden as well. But he was a great person. Nobody, as John said and my son said, nobody ever had a bad word about this man. And he would tell stories about everything and very family oriented and loved people, but he would not talk anything about his time in the war ever. And I was a teacher at the time, and I can remember asking him questions about World War II because my kids I taught middle school, and the kids I had were studying that. And I thought, oh, this would be really good to get some, firsthand information. And every time I asked him anything, he either walked away, something he never did, refused to talk about it, something he never did. And once I said to him, I was trying to figure out why so much avoidance. And I remember saying to him, Lionel, did you kill somebody in the war? You know, kind of I was young, you know, at this point. I was in my late 20s, maybe, when I asked that question. And I will never forget, he looked at me, the only time I ever remember him very, very serious. And he said to me, don't ever ask me that question. He said yes, and then said, don't ever ask me that question again. Almost frightened me the way he was very adamant about it. So I never asked it again. And I never brought anything up again. That was the end of the discussion. That's where it ended.
To kind of piggyback off of that, what's interesting, so there were three sons. Alan, the oldest, is Carol's husband, Jason's dad, and then my father, Richard, is the middle one, and then Jeff is the youngest. I don't think Jeff's on the call today, but Jeff being the youngest, Jeff was born in the late 50s. And Jeff got some more of these stories from Lionel because Alan was born just after he came home from the war, definition of a baby boomer. He wasn't ready to talk about it, as Carol just said, never was ready to talk about it with the middle son, my dad. And then, but Jeff, by the time Jeff was old enough to ask questions, this is probably now 20, 25 years later, he was actually willing to tell some stories to Jeff. And we've gotten those stories secondhand from Jeff over the years.
Interesting.
But there's the coal bin story where he was behind enemy lines and he was hiding in a coal bin, and a couple of Nazi soldiers found him, and we're going to walk him up the stairs, and he had the wherewithal to sort of grab the railings as he was walking up the stairs and kick backwards to knock the enemies back and get away. Some really interesting stories that he wasn't able to tell until probably a good 2 decades after he came home.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing that. That's fascinating to sort of get a sense of the character of this person we've been talking about. Sounds like the sort of practical joker and humorous side of him sounded very sort of very fun. So at this point, I think I will turn it over to Linda. How did you first come across this story?
Well, I'm a Boston journalist. I was on staff as a writer and editor at the Boston Globe for 36 years, I think it was. And then I took a buyout in 2016, but I still write for the Globe's magazine on a freelance basis, so I'm a pretty regular correspondent for them. And I often get calls from people that I know saying, I've got a story like you wouldn't believe, or,
Yeah.
you've got to do this story. And usually ends there. But I have a friend and neighbor who is extraordinary source of good stories for me. I mean, he never misses.
Thank you.
He slipped in the back way. Harvey Weiner is an attorney and also a Vietnam vet. And stop me if I'm getting this wrong. You're very involved with the Jewish war veterans of the USA, right?
Yes,
Do you want to say why you called, how you heard about this story?
I heard, I think Jason called the national headquarters of the war veterans. And said, hey, somebody found this, and this seems to be an interesting story. So it got back to me. I was national commander, but here in Massachusetts, I also was very much involved. And I said to myself, this would be a perfect story for Linda Matchan. I've fed her with several stories, and she occasionally will accept one or two.
Get out.
She said that, I'm busy, got this and got that. Can wait till the end of the year. And I called Jason and said, I got a real good report. Can you wait till the end of the year? I forget what time of year it was. And he wisely said yes. And the rest is history.
Cool.
So a lot of this story does seem a bit faded, just like, the dog tag ended up with the family on the week of his birthday. Just by chance, I was going to Germany in the spring, to visit some people and to attend a concert. And it's not like I go to Germany all the time, but I just thought the timing was really good. And, it wasn't going to be too far from the border of the Netherlands where Laurent was. And so I called him up in January and, explained that I was a reporter and I'd heard this story and it seemed really interesting to me. And would it be okay if I came to visit and we would find a photographer? And could we sort of retrace the story? Like, could we go to the place where you found the dog tag, and can I see the things you found? And you can talk about being a metal detectorist. And so I would just try to retell the story, chronologically. And it's funny, I looked up the email, the text you sent me back, and it was like, yes, I'll answer any question. So off I went to Germany in the spring, and Laurent and a buddy of his came and met me in, I think it was Aachen, Germany, which wasn't too far from where you lived. And we went to his house where he showed me some of his finds over the years related to World War II. I don't know if it exclusively, but that's what I remember about them. Some really astonishing things like a bayonet and a helmet and, a British soldier's toothbrush. I mean, he's really good at identifying the genesis of where these things come from. I think Laurent can distinguish between a German soldier's toothbrush and a British soldier's toothbrush. And everything had a terrific story behind it. And one thing that I was really struck by, I thought it was pretty, but it was a green bottle. And it had a label on it and it explained, and I think the name of the company was Atemka or something like that.
Opekta.
Opekta.
Yes.
And you told me, and I've since done research, that it was it was a bottle that from a company that made pectin that was used in manufacturing jam. And it was a German company, but it had fairly recently started a Netherlands unit. And the manager of it was Otto Frank and Frank's father. And it just made it seem so immediate. It was, talk about history being just below the surface. I mean, it literally was. I was really struck by that. And that, my research showed that, the headquarters of this company was on Prinsengracht Street, which we all know to be the secret annex of where the Franks lived. So they hid in there. So, I could see why Laurent was so excited about what he was doing. I mean, it wasn't just articles that he found, it was really human stories connected to history. And I was also struck by the fact that he told me that many people who find a dog tag would sell it or put it on eBay or profit from it in some way. But
if I could dovetail off of that, I want to come back to something Lawrence said a minute ago that he's told us prior as well, which is, we owe him a great debt of gratitude for returning the dog tags to our family. But he'd also said that sometimes he'll find a family and they're just don't really seem interested in it, which it blows my mind. And I think I speak for Jason, Stacy, and Carol and Alan. Like, what an amazing gift he gave to our family. How could you not be interested in something like this, right?
Right. So should I continue?
Oh, yeah. I think you're sort of getting into it, but what was it like to just kind of see all of these moving pieces and just sort of put together all of these stories for your...
It was like a little detective story, itself. It was so interesting. I mean, first of all, going to the spot where Lewis's dog tag had been found still unclear why it was there. I mean, I think the family has some leads, but there it was on the ground. And I tried to imagine the spot, which was there were trees everywhere, there were birds singing. It was so kind of pristine and beautiful. And like, what were the soldiers doing there? Were they camping? Were they, trapped? Were they, I mean, who really knew? It was just really hard to envision that this was connected to, as it turned out, the Battle of the Bulge and, and the war in its later stages. So it was fun to watch him use his metal detector, and he found a few things that day. Nothing as exciting as a dog tag, but that was really very generous of him. And then it was wonderful to come back and, reach out to your family and learn more about Lewis and, just see how grateful you were for this, artifact and how much it meant to you. I think that's something that all of us can really relate to, because our deceased relatives it seems like we'll never learn anything new about them. And it was just a very heartwarming story. For me.
If I can interrupt you for a moment, when Jason received the dog tags and Alan and I went over to see them, and Alan said that and if I quote you wrong, Alan, let me know. He said when he put them in his hand, he couldn't get over the emotion that he felt. And I would assume because it was his father, and to think that it had survived so many years and had come back to him, I can't imagine the emotions that he was going through. But he mentioned that several times. Did I get that right? Yeah.
I'll second that. When I was in town, it was actually the weekend that the article came out. I live in Michigan now, but I happened to be in town in Massachusetts seeing the family, and I was at Jason's house, and I said, "Do you have them? Can I hold them?" And he brought them out, and I had the same feeling. I've chills now just thinking about it, of holding my grandfather's dog tags 80 some odd years later. I can't describe that feeling. It was incredible.
And it was probably different, Jonathan, than if Lionel was here and had passed them down to your father or Alan or Jeffrey, and then they got
100%.
passed to one of the boys. I think part of that emotion was how it got to us. That was probably a big piece of it, in my guess.
They were buried.
Sorry.
They were buried for at
lot.
least 77 years.
Right.
At least. If we just do the math from like 2022, from when you found them, to 1945, when he got out of the military, that's 77 years. Now, and this clearly happened well before that. It could have been longer. But it's like, how does something that's been underground and under several inches of dirt for that long all of a sudden just turn up, and it happens to be, related to us? Like, that doesn't happen. That just doesn't happen regularly.
There was another piece of the story that I just found so interesting, and that is that, one of the reason it took Laurent so long, I think a couple of years, to track down the family, was that Lewis had changed his name. So he was looking for someone named Louis Gertzberg, but the person, the later incarnation of the person was Lionel Gay. And I mean, that was interesting in and of itself, but I was able to do some research on, why after the war so many Jewish people changed their names to something that didn't sound Jewish. And it turned out, I hadn't been aware of this. I mean, I sort of remember from my own childhood, people were doing things like, I don't know, changing or fixing their noses, or maybe changing their names so they wouldn't seem Jewish. But I had no idea that many veterans were doing it, and that or many soldiers were doing it after they came back, and that the war wasn't always good to the army, the military wasn't always good to Jewish people, and they weren't always treated well, and they came back and felt like, the world isn't necessarily a safe place for Jewish people to be in. And so he changed his name along with, it turns out there's a book that's been written about it, and I interviewed the author about Jewish name changing between the two world wars. Book was called A Rosenberg by Any Other Name. And I came to find out that after the war, the peak year of Jewish people changing their names was 1946, which was the year that, in fact, he did change his name. So there's a lot of history that went along with this story.
It wasn't just him. So he was the youngest of 7. And there were 3 brothers, and all 3 of them changed their name.
Right. And I think
to the same name. They all changed it from Gertzberg to Gay.
I don't think I knew that.
Yeah, the 3 brothers got together. I think Elena's on here somewhere, and her father was one of them, was Rem. And the other one was Erwin. They've all passed, obviously. They would have been about 100 years old at this point. But my father, from what I remember, when we asked about it, my father-in-law, the Lionel came from, it was kind of a nickname from his older siblings when he was younger. I don't know why. I'm not really sure how Lewis comes down to Lionel, but his older brothers and sisters called him Lionel, so he kind of kept that as his first name. And when they were going to change the name from Gertzberg, even though it was Lionel and it was Rem, or his real name was Albert. I got that right, Elaine.
Yep.
And I think I have that right.
Yeah.
And Erwin, all 3 of them were looking to change the name because it wasn't just soldiers in 1946. The anti-Semitism, if you continue to read, in this country, as a result of Hitler's policies and what was going on during World War II in Europe, we were very affected here in the US, extremely. And I think they were having trouble finding jobs, being treated fairly, and none of them had children yet. Okay. And that my father-in-law, I remember saying he wanted his name changed before the kids came. And they were the 3 boys, and they sat down, and what they came to the decision on was, let's keep the same initial and let's find something that has no connotation of any kind of religion or culture. And of course, the name Gay at the time meant it didn't have a sexual connotation back then either. And they wanted something simple and something that had nothing, that had no connotation to anything. And that's how they came upon oh, thank you. I didn't know that from Jeffrey to everyone. It says, he said it was a choice between, I didn't catch it, Jeff, because you signed off.
He said it was between Grant and Gay, which, as his grandson and middle schoolers being as cruel as they are, I kind of wish it had been Grant, because having the last name definitely got picked on a lot in middle school.
Well,
but
wait a minute. If you stop and think about it, there were not that many boys that were born into this family with the last name Gay, because Erwin only had one daughter, Nita. She got married and she got rid of the name. And then Rem had 2 children, and one was a boy, that was Normie, and then Elaine, who got married and changed her name. And then Lionel had 3 boys. And Nomi has since passed. So the 3 boys are still stuck with the name. And the 3 boys went off and had a couple, 1, 2. We have how many grandsons and then great-grandsons here? Yeah.
Yep.
More boys than girls in the family. So interesting. Very interesting.
The anti-Semitism in the greater Boston area after World War II. What happened was, and there's a book on this called The Nazis of Copley Square. There was a Catholic Church specifically, and they led by a Father Feeney. Basically, the thinking was, if Jews came back as soldiers, as veterans, as soldiers, they therefore, unlike our kids, they didn't fight in the front lines of World War II. There were many pogroms, temples were destroyed. This is in the 40s, right after the war. And many people not only changed their names, many Jews, but they actually fled the area. The anti-Semitism in the greater Boston area, all around here, was enormous. And it was led in part by the Catholic Church, unfortunately. And it was a shock because people whose kids or brothers or husbands were killed, non-Jews, they blamed also the Jews for the war itself, both as pushing Roosevelt and also, why did we do this war? It was just to free these Jews of Europe. We should have let them all die. It was rampant, and I say that as somebody who grew up in a Jewish slash Irish area, and the Irish in the 40s, Irish kids would get into a group and perform an activity called heaving. And the heaving activity was to go into Jewish areas and beat up Jewish kids. This was all in the, I'm pretty old, this was all in the mid and late 1940s, right after the war. Secondly, I'm a Vietnam War veteran, and I do give a lot of talks in front of schools and other groups. And one of the things I say, before I give my speech, and say, there'll be a question and answers afterwards. You can ask me any questions you want, with one exception. You can never ask me, and you can never ask any military veteran if they've killed them. When there's adults only in the audience, I add, and never ask a member of the clergy if they believe in God. But I did it half joking, but only half joking.
Wow. Well, thank you all so much for sharing this. This is so fascinating. If we're willing to take questions from the audience, I might sort of transition it into that segment. If anyone has any.
I have a couple of questions. One is, dog tags come in pairs. And I'm wondering if he ever brought home that second dog tag, or what happened to that second dog tag? That's the first question I have. And the second question I have is that one can get his military records from St. Louis. And I was very curious to see if Jason got his military records and what those basically said.
So we didn't know the dog tags existed until Laurent found this. so that's the first step. To answer the question, and I would probably rely on my dad or my uncle who's on the call to see if there was ever a second dog tag. We don't know what happened to it. We know that we have our theories of kind of how he ditched it in the first place and how he lost it. From what Laurent has told us, where he found it, he found treads from the tanks the Abrams tanks that he was driving. Right. So
Yes.
we believe that his tank may have come under fire in that area, that he ditched the tank and knew that he was behind enemy lines and likely ditched his dog tag at the same time. Again, we're speculating because this happened so long ago and nobody's here to confirm the story. But that's how we believe it to have happened. It's possible that the other one's still out there, but we don't know.
Yeah.
Right. I think the two theories were that they were just, say he was separated from them in the blast when he was thrown from the tank, or he realized there were a bunch of Germans around and didn't want to wear a dog tag that said he was Jewish, to be blunt. So, Laurent, I'm sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, well, I found it, the forest where I found it in had a fence, and it was a military training area, but like it wasn't there in the war. In the war, it was just one big forest, which it sucks it isn't anymore, because that means there's way less place to look up in the forest for any relics. But like the dog tag was, I think, not very far from the fence. So maybe like the dog tag, the other tag got. So I've actually looked like everywhere there for like the second. I could never find it. There's not even a scrap of metal left in that area. Um, well, maybe it ended up in the other side of the fence before the fence was actually built. So yeah, it's a German military area, so I cannot jump over the fence because I will probably be shot.
Please don't.
Yeah,
Don't do
yeah,
that.
yeah, it could have been from an explosion, which also means the attack flew somewhere else because like the attack, it had a very short chain with a piece of a plastic ring. I don't know what it's from, but it's not military. So yeah, he could have maybe
Don't know.
changed a little thing where it made it more easy to break off or something. Yeah, I hope someday I'll find the tag, but I don't think I'm gonna find it.
With his experience
But
as a jeweler, it wouldn't surprise me, and I'm sure it wouldn't surprise the rest of the family on the call if he finagled and fashioned some sort of custom chain for that dog tag.
He might have.
the thing is also like because he lost the tag, normally, yeah, well, actually always you will get a replacement pair. But what I wonder is what happened to that because he still has the uniform, but if he maybe threw out his replacement tags because it also had the same name or it just ended up being lost. I don't know.
I think,
I was gonna say,
Jason, I
Philip,
was going to,
if you can allow screen sharing for a second, I can share a picture of what it all
Oh.
looks like. I have it here.
and also, Jason, I was going to suggest that you let everybody in the library know who doesn't, or anyone else on here who's not part of the family, what you're having framed. Tell them what else you own and what you're having framed. I know you can't show them
Well,
because
no,
it's
we
not
can show
listed.
pictures of some of it. So
Okay.
let's see if this works. Hang
Are
on.
you able to share now?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this was Linda. This is from the article that you actually had. You shared the high resolution image of it with me. This is the picture of my grandfather with his tag, but this is the length of the chain. The chain was not very long. It was a very short piece of metal around it. So I always thought of dog tags as something that you'd wear around your neck with a longer chain around it. That's kind of just my own premonition of what it should look like. This is what it actually looked like. So it was kind of cool to see it this way. What we're having done right now, and I actually could probably zoom out on this. You can see if I can scroll on over a little bit and
Just want to add that you do wear it around your neck. There's a double chain. It's the one chain. And then there's
Okay.
the big chain that goes around your neck. And the idea is if somebody is killed, you're able to pull off.
Got it.
The small chain will break and you bring that back. And you keep the second chain will be with the individual with the dog tag, with a second dog tag on it.
Okay. That's interesting. Okay. So this is from your article as well, Linda. This picture was taken last year, but this is his army uniform. My uncle Jeffrey had this uniform for years, and he mailed it to me, I don't know, roughly 10 years ago. And I've had it in storage in my house since then. And literally 2 weeks ago, I wasn't thinking I should have had it. I should have had it here for this. I've been waiting for years to get this whole thing framed and put together. So ironically, when he passed in 1989, I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. When he passed in 1989, there were no military honors at his funeral. Right? I was no flag presented, none of that. And I don't know the full reasons for it. I was 13 years old. I really don't remember all the reasons around it. But typically, any sort of veteran will have military honors. They'll have a flag presented to the family. That never happened. We presume that's because the Army didn't know he existed, right? All those records, none of them were digitized at that point, and nobody was
Or is it
aware of the
possible
name
he
change.
didn't want it? I suppose that's a possibility too.
Very, very possible, right? There was
He didn't want anything to do with the military for his funeral.
He didn't, Dad just said he didn't want anything with the military. He didn't want anything to do with the military at his funeral.
okay.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
So interestingly enough, about 3 years ago. So this all happened 2 years ago when Laurent found me. 3 years ago, what would have been his 100th birthday, we had reached out to our congressman, and we had a flag flown for him on his 100th birthday over the U.S. Capitol. So we could get a flag. We wanted something done in his honor. So we have that flag in the house. It's all being framed right now. So everything is at the framing shop right now, being put together with the flag, the Army uniform, the dog tag, the picture that I just shared that has his face on it. There's a lot of the camp pictures, but there's pictures of family all going into it, as well as his discharge papers, that tells you basically everything he was involved in during the war. So and as soon as I get it, I'll believe me, I'll get pictures of it taken. Linda, you'll get a copy of it. You'll get to see it. Laurent will definitely get pictures of it. I'm pretty sure if I know John well enough, he'll make the trek out to the Boston area from Detroit just to see it. So, we're excited to see it all come together, but this has been like, I'd always wanted to get this thing framed, but something in my mind just wasn't complete. And when that tag came to me, and I remember the day I got it. I remember, Laurent, when you shipped the tag to me, you had it like in a little cigarette carton, and it was taped so tight. It was packed so tight with like bubble packing and like duct tape wrapped around it like 6 times. and I got it, and I was. And you were probably texting me every single day. Did it get there yet? It says it's here.
Yeah.
It says it's here. It hasn't been delivered yet. He was very nervous to ship it. He didn't want it to get lost.
I don't blame him.
But it was really cool when I opened it up and just to see like the story of, I was laughing because of the way Laurent had sent it to me, and I thought it was amusing. Like I'm like, this young guy has done like a wonderful thing for our family. And he's so like, I'm not trying to make fun of you. You were paranoid that something was going to happen to it.
Yeah, I've got like the shipping in my country. Like I've lost so many packages. It's always like, so I was sometimes can't send it, but like the let me show you. The dog tag was like very small and had like such a box on it. I was like, it needs to be packed properly. And it's also, I wanted it to be like big because the bigger things are harder to get lost. So that's also why the package was a bunch bigger.
Yeah.
Because if it was a small package, it would have been gone probably.
I saw Eric had his hand raised a minute ago.
I think he had to. Oh, there he is. He said,
Oh, you're muted.
I think he's multitasking.
That's okay.
he's working.
If you want to memorialize him, and particularly his efforts in World War II, there are 2 museums in which you can do that. The first is in the United States. It's the National Museum of American Jewish Military History. It's in Washington, D.C., near the Palm Circle. You can go online and you can register him. You can buy a paver in his name. You can get his picture on a kiosk. You can do lots of things in that particular museum to memorialize him. In Israel, there's a museum of the Jewish participation in World War II. And in that museum, the Jews of every single country that participated against the Nazis the idea is to get them registered. You go online and find this as well. I'm not giving you the exact correct name, but it's in a nutshell, it's a massive, beautiful museum. It's halfway, I think, between Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. It's like the Jewish Museum of Jewish Participation in World War II. There was no Israel then, and the only people in that museum, like Mickey Marcus belong, are those who, like the 500,000 Russian Jews who participated. And I forget how many Americans there were. I think Russians had the most. What you do is they want a record for all time of any Jewish soldier that participated in World War II. And all you have to do is you go online and you fill out a form. And that he's registered in that museum forever.
It's really helpful. Thank you. I'll jump in for Eric because his mic isn't working. Eric, our cousin who's a veteran himself, said he remembers several years ago sitting out on the sidewalk with our grandfather Lionel at the Memorial Day parade in Malden. And he would ask Lionel if he was a veteran, and Lionel would just change the subject, which was very interesting. So thanks for sharing that, Eric.
I don't think anyone questioning Lionel's patriotism, right? I'm sure he and all that, but he just doesn't want to talk about the military service. My grandpa was a colonel in Vietnam, South Vietnamese Army. Thank you for their service, by the way, but he never talked about the war. It was just too hard.
I never talked about the war for 30 years. I hid it. It was not, I didn't even put it, well, I guess I did put it in my resume, but I fudged it.
Yeah. It's very common. I had a question. I didn't read the article because I just walked in here, but Lionel, what did he do after the war? What kind of, what did he do for a living?
Mom, you want to take this one? You can probably explain it better than the rest of us.
To explain what, I'm not hearing it well.
What did he do for a living? Was he a butcher or a baker or a candlestick maker?
He was a butcher or baker, yeah. He was a watchmaker by trade. Which he learned when he came home from the army through a friend, and then he became eventually a jeweler, and worked for when did he work for Joe Gann, Alan?
Oh, Eric's showing
When he
a
was-
ring that he made too right now.
Wow.
Let me see.
Oh, I've got mine too. I have one too that he made for me too. He designed jewelry, you can see it. This is my wedding band.
Eric's holding
Because
up one too, yeah.
he became a designer at some point, which was I thought was kind of cool too. But he worked for Joe Gann. Was Joe Gann the one that taught him to be a watchmaker? Yes, Joe Gann, who was the original person, Laurent found that name. He's the one that taught him basic watchmaking, and eventually he went into business with actually with a cousin of Elaine's, right, Elaine? I don't know. She doesn't have her. She's not on. He went into business with Seymour Hershoff, who is Elaine's mother's cousin. We didn't know that till recently. Everybody's connected. And eventually, he was not a well man. He had a heart condition from a very young age, having had his very first major heart attack in his 30s, and eventually had to give up the business with his partner Seymour, and they went to work right next door for David Freeman in Boston in the Jewelers Building. That still exists, by the way, and his grandchildren have taken it over. So we're into the third and fourth generations.
I think that's where my brother went to get his wife's engagement ring was
Yes, he
was
did.
over there. Yep. And
Yes, he did.
and Jason Stacy
Stacy's
too.
too. Yep.
Yep.
Yep. Raise your hand if you went there. Yep.
So to give you a kind of comical view on his sense of humor and his personality, and my mother will tell this story better than anybody, but there's a story about my mom's wedding ring.
Oh.
And you know exactly where I'm going to go with this. So we were kind of trying to explain like this man's personality and who he was. Mom, I'm going to let you tell the story because this is your story to tell.
And this was Lionel. So I just showed you a picture of this wedding band. By the way, I've been married 57 years, so it's very old. I got it a couple of years before I got married, so almost 60. And when I got my original diamond, it wasn't what I wanted. When Alan gave me the engagement ring, it wasn't what I wanted. And I said, if I don't speak up now, I'm going to wear a ring I hate for the rest of my life. So I went to my father-in-law and I said to him, no offense to anybody. I know this is a very lovely ring, but it's not what I want. And it's not what I've ever dreamt about. This is what I don't like a lot of jewelry. I'm very simple when it comes to the jewelry. I would like to have my wedding band and engagement ring all one piece. What can you do for me? That's why, let me take it off again so you can see it. So you can tell this is all one, this is the engagement ring and the wedding band is all one piece. And I went to him and he said, let me see what I can do. He took back the old ring to put it towards this one. And he designed this. And when he designed it, he specifically said to me, what do you think? I said, I absolutely love it. And then he said, this is a one of a kind. I'm going to break the mold. It'll be a one of a kind ring. Nobody else will ever have it. And what would you think? And now keep in mind, I was 19 years old. I was very young when I got married. So far, so good. Now we fast forward, I can't even remember 30 years. I mean, it must have
It
been,
was
I
probably like
can't
10
even,
years ago.
oh no, this happened
Longer
when
than
my,
that? All right.
yeah, this must have happened closer to maybe 40 years. My sister was moving to Florida. So my sister, who lived in Rhode Island at the time, said, "We're moving to Florida. I'd like to spend some time with you one day." And I took a day off from work, and she and I went to a local mall, and we're just walking around, just enjoying each other's company. And we wandered into a kitchen store, someplace I would never wander into because I don't like kitchens in particular. But we wandered into a kitchen store, and right in front of me was a pole with those little magnets that they have on them. You've probably seen them. And I'm very right-handed. Don't ask me why. With my left hand, I'm moving the magnets around because I'm interested in what they have, what they're saying. And as my hand is up in the air, some random woman came over to me and did this, like she was going to handcuff me, and said, oh my God, it's Lionel Gay's daughter-in-law." And I'm like frozen to the spot, and I don't recognize this lady. And I look at my sister, and I'm looking, and she's shaking her head, no, it's nobody she knows. And the woman yells, and I don't remember the guy's name, but she yells down the aisle, "Bob, Bob, come down here quick. I've got Lionel Gay's." He still has me by the wrist, by the way. I'm frozen. It's Lionel Gay's daughter-in-law, and this gentleman comes down. I don't recognize him either. So finally, when I can catch my breath, I say to this woman, "I'm really sorry. Do I know either one of you? I don't, I apologize if I don't, but I don't recognize you." And she says, "Oh, we've never met." "Well, then how do you know I am Lionel Gay's daughter-in-law?" And she says, "Because of your ring." And I said, "Because of my ring?" And she said, "Yes." And she holds up her hand, and she's got the same ring on her finger, exactly the same ring. And I could hear, I was so stunned for a moment. And she tells me that Lionel was her jeweler. And she says to me, when I went to him, I was trying to tell him what I wanted for a ring. And he starts sketching it on a piece of paper. And the more she's talking and the more he's sketching, inadvertently, I am assuming he sketched my ring. Okay. And she goes, "That's it. That's what I want. That's exactly what I want." And he said, "I can't make this ring for you. My daughter-in-law has it. I broke the mold. I already told her nobody else would have it." And she begged him. And finally, he said, "You know what? You got wherever she came from. I can't remember now. We didn't live anywhere near each other, supposedly." And he said, "You know what? You're never going to meet her. She'll never know." That's what he told her. And here I am standing in a store. We both have the same. It's a slight difference, but I would know which one was mine. But if you looked at the two of them, you couldn't tell. All I could say, my sister turned to me and said, "Your father-in-law is laughing so hard right now. I can hear him. I can actually hear him." That'll explain his personality. So
Wow, that's great.
it is great. It was funny.
Thanks.
And now I wonder how many more of them there are out there. So
Well, we
love
are
it.
unfortunately at time, but I just want to thank you all so much for joining us. This is incredible.
Yeah, thanks for organizing it.
Oh,
Sure. Thank you for having us. This was fun.
Thank you.
thank you.
And I love that it was in this part of the library. I wasn't sure where it could be in the library, but this is such a meaningful part of the library. John, was this your part? And Eric, was this your part of the library too? Or did you have a new part?
It's been a while, but I do remember spending a lot of time in the library, pre-internet, going to school across the street and needing to research stuff. So the Malden Public Library has a very, very special place in my heart. I still have my library card, somewhere downstairs, and it's even though I haven't lived in Massachusetts in 22 years. So
And
Yeah.
back to Penny. Penny, you should know as well that I also studied in that library because Alan and I moved to Malden when we got married, and I was still in college, and I had no place to study, and I used to go there all the time.
This portion of the library is just stunning.
And this is sort of full circle because this is where you come with your students.
Right, right.
This is really, and this is their introduction to the library.
Exactly.
Wow. Will there be a recording of this call? Is the call being recorded?
Yes, so
Yeah.
I am recording it. If you want, you can email me at PWR. I can put it in the chat.
Yeah,
That's
great.
probably a lot easier than yapping it out. But
Philip, I can distribute it within the family too if you
okay.
if you want if you have a link to it at some point.
Thank you. Let me also just throw it in here too. But thank you, Jason.
Sure.
It should be saved on your computer.
Yes.
This is something.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Appreciate letting me into this presentation.
Yeah. Did you want a copy? Sorry, I got a copy.
Sure, I'll take a copy.
All right. I just threw my email in there. And feel free to just send me a message if
Yeah.
you'd like a recording of this.
Those are fun. Basically, that perhaps.
Photocopy. Yeah,
Terrific. Thank you.
Thank you all so much.
thank you.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thank
Laura.
you guys. Take care.
Hi.
Thank you.
Bye.
Nice seeing you, Laurent. Nice seeing you again.
Yes, nice seeing you, everyone again.
Take care.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Go on the internet.
No, you can't.
No, you can't.
No, unless you're a